Okay, welcome to Black Belt Interviews with me, Master David Hustlin. I'm joined today by fellow podcaster, fellow master and instructor, Chris Malarkey from Bergenfield, New Jersey. Is that right, sir?
No, actually from Belleville, New Jersey, but it's all good. No worries.
Okay, no problem. So I'm here on a wintry winter's evening here in the UK. What's it like where you are, sir?
We're just about feeling that frostbite. It's coming up on us really quick. So the mornings are definitely crisp, and it's that in-between weather where you can sort of wear a jacket to start your day, and then you can sort of take off a layer later, but then you want to make sure you remember that jacket by about 4 or 5 p.m. So
yeah. Well, we're looking forward to the Christmas, I guess, and all that holidays, that season. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, and really enjoyed looking into this podcast and speaking to yourself and your background, and where you've come from and what you do now. Very interested in any philosophy you can share with us, and obviously, if we have an opportunity to talk about Grandmaster SJ Kim, as someone you know a lot about and we've spoken before, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely, legend. Yeah.
So, sir, you're a podcaster. I said that. Yes.
I got on my this podcast called Mastery with Chris Malarkey. I guess kind of made it as simple as I could. I was looking for a name, and you just kind of get to those things where you're like, it's better done than perfect. So I put it up and just kind of let it run, and we're 9 episodes in on that. I started that actually almost I think a year to the day, a couple of days ago. I had a friend of mine who was the number 2 kickboxer in the world. Now we went to high school together, so he kind of took his career path and just ran with it. And I was privileged to have him on to be the first guest and kick everything off. But our 10th episode should drop hopefully before the end of the year. I'm looking at trying to get it done next week. But I kind of do a similar thing, right? Just try to find whoever's willing to talk to me and give me some time, and hopefully I'm on that level I can reach out. And it's surprising where these things can take you when you have these conversations, right? Where you venture off on your own, sort of like a back project, and teaching takes up most of my time, and I obviously share the love and passion for martial arts, specifically Taekwondo, and it's brought me different places around the world, but it's also allowed me to make so many connections over the course of the pandemic through virtual. I was able to speak with one of the Gracies, one of the daughters of Hickson Gracie. So it's like, these people that you wouldn't ever imagine giving you any time, give you time. So
it's cool. It's been a new world for a while, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's very much like the Matrix at some points, right?
Yeah, and we're still, I guess, getting used to it in some way or another. But like these opportunities that you've created, that I'm doing, this sort of fashion, it's led to a whole new understanding and a connection, which is really important for me. I really feel the pleasure and the enjoyment from connecting with people across the world, time zones. We're Taekwondo-ists, we're martial artists, we share a lot of things in common.
Yes.
And it's great to connect, like we said. And I couldn't help seeing one of your guests was actually someone I've spoken to as well, and someone I know fairly well, Master Natasha.
Yes.
Yes. And, great. So, as I say, our paths have crossed already.
Yes. It's so cool though, like, because I didn't know, I spoke to her, I had the pleasure of having her on, and there's a funny background story to that too, because I only realized this after I did that interview, or maybe just slightly before I hopped on, and I was definitely a little nervous because there's obviously language barrier. So I was actually talking to Grandmaster Vasilis, so that was nice that she was kind of like the intermediary there. But what was really cool about that interview was, we actually understood each other despite the language barrier, just, I guess, in terms of body language. Like, he understood and was able to kind of nod his head in real time. And I got him as well. Obviously I didn't understand the words, but, when she put it back to me in English, it was like, it's exactly the vibe, I was going for. And I actually sent Grandmaster V and Master Natasha a message of, I think, like 12 or 13 years ago. That's how long ago They had popped up like on the YouTube, and took fire. And I was like, this would be really cool to talk with this guy here. See, but I wasn't. I'm still a nobody, but I was like, let me shoot my shot and see what I get. Know, and it took that long for things to come to fruition. And I told my oldest son, you got to really, the perseverance aspect of what we're talking about on the mats takes place so much off the mat. Because that, if I didn't have that persistence in bugging him and, like just shooting a message out and then reaching out to her, and I would have never gotten that wonderful interview and that information, because, that's, again, you're talking about the connections that we make ultimately, human life in existence is all about relationships and the ones that we build. So,
yeah, very much. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So that was great seeing that. And like you said, it coming to you the opportunity for that. Yes. And I really enjoyed that, my conversation with her. And we're in the same world governing body as well, so that's really nice. Right. But like you said, the podcast is allowed for us to get to know each other much better. Chris, with yourself, Master, where did it all begin for you, sir?
It actually, funny enough, I got a blast from the past yesterday. He just actually attended Grandmaster Brad Ship's tournament for the World Chungkun Taekwondo Association, or Grandmaster Bakmun Kim. So that was also my school's debut, CMTKD. So we took about like 8 or 9 students there. Fast forward though, I was speaking with one of my teachers that was there as well. Grandmaster Nathanson, and he told me, hey, turn around. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking this is like, a student or, just a quick second. And it ended up being my very first instructor who had, I still have the first uniform in my closet, so just like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it's just like one of those things I can't toss away. But I was the first time I ever put a uniform on was because of this man. Wow. So I was much respect. And so him and I have the history from Brooklyn. Instructor Laszlo Huve, who's Romanian, and he and I was his student for, I would say about a little over a decade in Brooklyn. He started out of a dance studio. So what was kind of cool about him is he kept sort of our training private. There was like one little window in that school, and he would close the blinds every time we did class. Their parents obviously were allowed to sit outside, but it was at that, now that I understand how everything works, it was like that point in time where it was coming out of the hardcore era into really advertising Taekwondo more to the kids. So you get more parents involved as your base, but it was cool. It kind of felt like we were training, in secrecy, kind of going back to the origins of, first martial arts trainings. And sessions. But yeah, it started there and it kind of took off. He established, I just did a post on this on my Instagram too. It almost brought me to tears because it was really a heartwarming feeling to have that connection in person again. Because he's actually probably going to be my next guest. But he is so responsible for my mindset as a fighter and developing that tenacity, and not just on the mat and kicking and punching and blocking, but now when I really think back on it retrospectively, just how I apply myself in general across the board. And I remember like my attitude, some of our attitudes as students really comes from the teacher, right? How much we steal from them it's sort of embedded, like some of my teaching style is here and some of my teaching style is here. And then toss in your own flavor over time. But he was a huge influence, and I'm so glad he was there yesterday. I'm just off the chance, like it's just almost like you get to think like, all right, well, you think about like destiny, fate kind of thing. You're like, well, what if I didn't do the things that I did in this order? Would I still land at X event if I took out Y? And it's like, so it was such an opportunity really to be in his presence. For me, and so many people were there giving me handshakes and congratulations, yada yada. I'm not there for that. I'm there for the students. But it was nice to hear. But it was nice I could bring it up another level and show that respect in front of everybody to someone that got me started in the game. Big respect to Instructor Laszlo Huve for that.
Wonderful. And so he was just visiting, or he was part of the delegation, or?
He was visiting. He hasn't been part of like Taekwondo. Our organization, the Grandmaster SJ Kim, is Taekwondo International, which Grandmaster Kim is the president. And I've been with Grandmaster Kim forever. As long as I've been with Instructor Huve, he was sort of the liaison between, I guess, me and Grandmaster Kim, because he would take us into the city as kids for testing when Grandmaster Kim was at his legendary 50th Street School in Manhattan. So I remember taking the train rides, with my parents. I had a nice dry clean uniform because, my parents didn't play around. So they taught me, keep everything clean and organized. So we would, ride the train out to Manhattan and, go to this huge school, which to me was bigger than life at the time. I was just a little peanut. So I'm watching, you're smelling, the air of, some serious work on your way up the steps, and then you walk in and he's got like this huge trophy room, but he's not concerned about any of that. It's just the energy that he had, that Grandmaster Kim still has. And it's really just sort of apparent in all of his students that were there at the time. And many of those students actually are teachers that I ended up working with or under. Okay. Master James Marr, Master John Meany, Master Laura Giletti, some of those familiar faces. But yeah, it's cool to still be connected with that part of the earlier aspect of my training, and then still be able to sort of watch them grow. As instructors and people too. We forget that people change over time. Including our parents. They're not the same way when we're 40 as they were when we were 6. It's just, you got to give that people that time and that space. But it's been a journey. He was there just visiting, like I said. I think he brought one of his fighters, Instructor Huve, just getting like a sort of a preview of the space and taking a look at what we were doing. But he's made on his own sort of world champions, legitimate. So I mean, he's that caliber, and to know that I trained under him, I think a lot of what people compliment me on because of him. Those early roots, those early days, they planted the seeds for you. Yes, everything. Everything. He was everything for me. So how old were you then when you sort of started your Taekwondo? I started at about 6 years old. No one can really pinpoint but the exact date, but it was like around 92, 93, like somewhere in that range. And I just, my mother got me started. It's not like everybody else's story where they were like, they got traumatized by something. No, I was just a kid and had a lot of energy, and they were trying to actually classify me in school because I had so much energy. Right. Yet I had all my work done before everybody else, and it was correct. So it was not really it wasn't really a matter of whether I was doing the work, but just trying to get me to focus the energy. And when we're boys, I don't really like the way the education system is set up for everybody to sit down and it's tough. It doesn't work for everybody that way. Much respect to the teachers. My wife is a teacher as well in the high school systems here. So, but when my mother took me for my first class, and she got that suggestion from one of her friends and say, hey, I put my son in XY, try this. She looked around and, we took a walk up the street. I took my first class. I don't remember a whole lot about the first class, to be honest, but I do remember the feeling of being excited to really be able to move like this without, repercussion, no one's going to yell at me if I yell really loud. No one's going to yell at me if I do a kick as fast as I can. They're like, no, we actually encourage it, and so it was in an environment that got me hooked from like day one. So, it's not a recent interest of mine. It's always been there. Yeah. From very early days. Yes. The training at that time, you're young, very young, half an hour. We were doing, if I remember correctly, I think we were doing hour-long sessions, which is what I teach now here at my school here. So we did about 60 minutes. I would imagine that, because I don't think we were on the 45-minute thing. It doesn't sound right to me, but and we would fight Instructor Huve too. Like, we used to do the circular setup in the school, and we did so many things. And we would do our patterns one by one, and we make like sort of that circle of fire, all the students around you watching, and we would dissect things for us, not criticize us, but he would teach us how to take critique, which is so important, because I know adults now that can't take the slightest criticism without taking it in the other opposite direction. There's so many more adults need martial arts than they think. And it's not just for kids, but I remember training really hard. We sweat a lot. I mean, if I was sweating at 6 years old, I mean, everyone knows how hard it is to get a kid to sweat. So it's like we were sweating leaving those classes. So that tells you, I guess, the caliber of work we were doing there. But it was no joke with him. He was, he and still is, and he hasn't even aged really. But it's like he trained us just as hard as he would train himself, if that makes sense. We got a product from him now. Again, retrospectively, we got a product from him that seemed very similar to how I think he would train himself. And that's ultimately what was the selling point, I guess, for me to continue, and my parents obviously to continue paying for me to go at the time. But he was always honest, and just everything a martial artist is, I would say, all these memories come back too, like just looking at someone. I haven't even thought about him for a while, but when you see someone you haven't seen in a while, it's like all those things come back, all those neurons and axons start firing. Everything's like, and I just remembered everything about him all of a sudden, like how good, of a teacher, how and the feeling. Maya Angelou said something to the degree of, people will forget what you've done, but they never forget how you make them feel, and it's so important, and it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of clicked for you at that time, didn't it? It was it sounds like a mature way of teaching the children, and a grown-up way, and teaching the hard work and the example. And it was just a time for you, and you picked up on it, and you still got those traits today that you had in those early days.
Yes, I did. Yes, I'm hoping I've got a lot of that left.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not picking up on your energy, Master. It's fantastic. It's infectious.
Thank you.
It's great. And so obviously a young child, coming up, grading, competing, finding that position, and
we did a lot of that stuff. I was speaking with many of the parents yesterday at the tournaments. I always like to sort of break that fourth wall and speak with them, not just let them watch us do stuff. So I did a lot of refereeing yesterday. We had a big division, actually. I did it all solo. I was proud of myself. I was like, this is a huge division of fighters, of kids, and advanced kids. So it was like, contact to the head, and making sure there's clean shots there, nothing low. You got to call the right stuff. Because it's a lot of that stuff that you're being observed by many more people than just the fighters themselves, including adults. So it was. When I think back, it was like I spent about 20 years probably competing, like really like at a really high level. At least what I consider a high level. I didn't make it to the Olympics or anything like that, but we competed really hard. We were encouraged to compete. Again, Grandmaster Kim, very prevalent in my training. He's been the only man that I've stuck with in terms of like his level. I've never gone to go seek another Grandmaster outside of him. He's really like the Taekwondo encyclopedia in a person. Anything I have to ask him. And it's what the cool part about this Mr. Hudson is he's got the same enthusiasm as I remember him having when I was a child for it now. It's like it's such an energy that's there. He's here for it. He's very passionate about it. He instructs. I mean, it's wonderful. Like what I would pay anything to have a private class with him, like it's just that how rare is it to have a 9th degree black belt still put on a uniform and teach, and not just teach, but be in the shape to teach. Those combinations there, I'm sure your listeners will understand right away. Somebody that's maintaining themselves that way and living the lifestyle, sort of the Budo, right? Living that warrior lifestyle, day to day. So I couldn't be luckier. I was actually talking to my father, who yesterday after I left the tournament, because I still call my dad and say, hey, I love you, and thanks for keeping me in martial arts all these years, because it's paying off. And I was like, hey, do you remember Instructor Huve? You remember Grandmaster Kim? He's like, they never aged. He's like, they don't look any older than whatever they look like when I met them. They look the some like, that's just cool. We just hope someone will say that about you at the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was something that did dawn upon me when unfortunately, I met General Choi and Park Jung-soo, who sadly passed away.
That's right.
Recently, but I met them, General Choi. Yeah, they didn't look their age at all. And
how was that? And question back to you, how was that meeting General Choi? Because that's like not everyone can say that they've had that experience.
No, we were very lucky. When you think back to it, these opportunities came up. One was in Leicester, which is north of where I am, but it's only 3 hours away, and it was a 2.5 day seminar, IIC they called it. And yeah, we got the invitation. Not everyone went, but I realized, hang on, it was a first degree. And I just knew I had to go. And yeah, it was fantastic. Can't really put it into words, really. The other grandmasters that have spoken on the podcast we all say the same thing. You hear the footsteps coming, and you feel the presence before he's there.
Oh yeah,
he wasn't a tall man, but his presence was massive, and he just held everybody. The whole front row was there, grandmasters and people that you knew of and had massive reputations, and sort of, in some ways, respectfully but fearsome characters. He had them in his hand of his, he's in the palm of his hand, and
that's crazy, man. Wow.
And his son was there as well, and it was just it was all and everything you could wish for, really.
Amazing, man. Hang on to those photos, back them up, whatever you can do, put them on the cloud, anything you can do, save that stuff, man. Because like again, Grandmaster Kim, I guess segue into that is Grandmaster Kim was a bodyguard for General Choi, I guess, from what I understand from Grandmaster Kim, as they toured some of the many countries that they were doing these demonstrations for on the ITF demo team. So it was cool. I've got like 1 or 2 pictures where Grandmaster Kim is pictured with General Choi and his wife. And it's cool to see that. The fact that you're the bodyguard for, the founder of the art form, which, when I speak to people about what makes me different or unique, because we're all looking for that, because, you find as many Taekwondo schools as McDonald's these days. I've actually directed people. I'm like, if you don't want to be here, you can go right up the street to here, and you can go down the street this way. And, but everyone's always looking for that niche quality. So oftentimes part of my pitch to people is that, well, the information I'm getting is coming from as close to the source as possible. And it's all truth. None of what I'm saying is a lie or deceitful in any way. It's like, everyone can say that they do Taekwondo or they have this grandmaster and they've been doing it this long. That's great. But to get it from someone that's in the Taekwondo encyclopedia, spent time with General Choi, toured the countries, did the demo team, and still teaching today, I think that's what makes me unique, is that this information really is so valuable. I really can't put a price on it. So, it's really that's kind of how the conversations go, and I let them see the rest of the class, in action, of course. But it's an interesting experience that you had. And I guess to go along with that, Grandmaster Kim told me this one story. Hopefully I get it right. But Master Kim told me that at some point in time, he was touring with General Choi doing, getting ready to do a demonstration. Maybe it was in Argentina, in Latin America, somewhere like that. But Master Kim, always a consummate professional, even when he was younger, and made sure he showed up in uniform like early. So I guess they had a time to be downstairs from the hotel, and Master Kim made sure he was there much earlier than everybody else. I was on the team, again, just from what I understand. And then when apparently the rest of the demo team members, or a certain number of them, came downstairs late after General Choi was there, and Grandmaster Kim obviously telling me this story, me and another one of my friends, this story, and he was like, General Choi was just sitting there and just looked at him very calmly, and didn't have to speak very loud apparently, and was like, should I be waiting for you, or should you be waiting for me? That was all he said, and that cleared the road for like the next 2,000 years. Like, okay, we massively messed this up. We sorry, sir. But for you to, again, going back to levels of instruction, for someone to be a teacher in more ways, like when they don't have their black belt on, is important. So for you to sort of kind of give a parable back to somebody getting them to think a certain way, as opposed to like criticizing them for not doing something, that's monumental right there.
Yeah.
My opinion. So that, to me, that's how I kind of know General Choi, is through that story.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm missing certain parts here, so forgive me if I mess anything up there, but I'm pretty accurate on the quote.
No, that sounds very genuine from what I've heard before, and the kind of thing that could happen. And like you say, it's a lesson there, isn't it?
Yes, there is a big one, for sure.
And yeah, I mean, what an experience he had being part of that demonstration team from 1976.
Yes.
To speak to Mr. Michael Cormack, who was on the team, wonderful person, counts so well and so vivid experiences they shared, the uniqueness of it. And, you can only dream of what they did, and how where they were at that particular time, and the ability of these people that were selected was
golden era, really, if you think about it. Golden time of what from Taekwondo coming from across the many seas to here. That's like the golden time. And you can't get it back. You can only talk to people, which is what these platforms that we have, you and I mutually, are for, is to kind of live through a little bit of that, because we didn't get that opportunity. At least for me, I never got the opportunity to meet General Choi, or it may not have meant the same thing meeting him at 7 years old as it does now, as in my mid 30s. So it's you can only listen and just take notes. Yeah,
100%. But I think these stories, the ones that you're recounting, the way you're talking about it, I think it does connect to people that even very and you have very enthusiastic students that are and everything, and you give them the stories that they can hear, and it does do something. It helps them connect.
It does. I actually had I have another story which I was actually telling my wife yesterday, and because I got a little, I'm starting this again, my school, CMTKD, Chris Malarkey Taekwondo, from scratch. So I'm literally, this is a garage setup right now. I renovated this place by hand. I'm by myself, and it was a process. I had a vision for it. We bought this house maybe 2 months ago, and I made a promise. I was already teaching virtually outside for like a year throughout the course of the pandemic, because there really was no way to teach indoors legally or safely. I didn't want to put anybody in jeopardy, including my family. I got 2 sons and a young daughter, so and my wife. I didn't want to put anybody in harm's way. So it started to get cold, to say the least. So I promised all my students this year, I said, we'll have a space, to work in. Just, give me like 2 weeks. And everyone thought that was going to take longer, but I also work in the daytime as well, full time. So I was like, I'm gonna find a way to get it done. And just do the sheer willpower. Like when you have your mind attached to a goal, you don't necessarily have to have Taekwondo as your background. I think it helps, but I really put my Taekwondo, I guess, mastery to the test, not in just my ability to teach people this past year, but in my ability to understand people, and my ability to do a little bit higher goal setting, and hit those goals. So we, needless to say, we got into the garage. Everyone's here, so we're all safe. We mask up and everything, sanitize, yada yada. But at the tournament yesterday, kind of just all that came back to me in a maybe a second. Just kind of looking out at now my students are competing, 2 of which are virtual for a year.
Wow.
1 hour a week with me on Sundays. No more time than that. An hour all together each Sunday for 99% virtual. I saw them in person maybe 2 or 3 times. Wow. And they went out yesterday and kicked butt and got first place and second place. Out of 120 plus students, competitors. That's not a testament to me. That's a testament to the system that we're under. That's what I was trying to tell. It's not me. I'm supposed to get this information to you the right way. That's my job. Understand the structure that we have here produces results like this if you stick with it long term. And in that, I guess into going into the story now, was I just remember, I hadn't seen Grandmaster Kim in probably over a year until yesterday. So it was good kind of hanging out with him. And I do remember, I still actually have the medal upstairs in my bedroom somewhere, but I remember I didn't place 1 year. And I was with Instructor Huve, my first instructor, as you might recall.
Yeah.
And I just sucked at this tournament. I was a kid, I just wasn't good.
Right.
Flat out. I flat out just wasn't. I just did not. I had the enthusiasm, but I just didn't have the ability yet. And it got harder for me as I got older because I'm 6'4" now. And, I had to go through so many adolescent changes, where I think my body stopped growing and I was okay. Or now that kick I have to sort of remake because I got a little growth spurt here. But I remember Grandmaster Kim, as I was leaving the tournament, I had my head down, probably crying. And, I walk out, my parents are, like, hey, let's go home. We'll get you something, make you feel better, yada, yada. And I hear these footsteps, like you said, and I hear like these dress shoes on the gym floor, and it's Grandmaster Kim walking toward me. So I'm thinking like, okay, he's about to like hand it to me.
Yeah.
And he's not like that, especially with kids. He's great with kids. And he gave me a 3rd place medal and told me, he's like, yo, you were a champion. Just today wasn't your day. Keep training, like all those great, wonderful things. Yeah. It meant so much that he got up in a room full of thousands of people who were all trying to get his attention at the same time to focus on me for that moment. Really like made, I think, my journey a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it's just that infectious energy. Like, when somebody talks to you that way when you're a kid, it does make a difference. And we forget sometimes as older people, how good it feels when someone acknowledges us for, failing, yes, but for continuing. We don't get that acknowledgement. We're in the adult world where it's, did you get it done or did you not get it done? And that's how I teach. You either show up to class or you didn't. So I can't teach you from your couch. So, you got to put in the work while you're here. It's not an easy, I don't teach, easy, but, the results you're going to get are, the value of that is way beyond, the price. So.
No, 100%. Obviously people listening are like ourselves, practitioners, but also instructors. And you made a great point there. And I think, obviously it was the Grandmaster that made that moment for you, but we all have that opportunity, don't we, as teachers to focus down on the individual and give them that little bit of time. And like you said, it kind of, for each and every one of them, we can do that for. It really makes a world of a difference.
100%.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Master. It's wonderful. And so you've got your school now. You've established it. It's your own school.
Yes.
And if we go back to your own training, you said you got into competing. You had this influence from the top instructors that you've been around, and you was building it for yourself.
Yes.
And competing just around the country, or
we did the inter-school as many championships as we could, realistically. Still going to school and trying to get the academic thing locked down. So after a while you understand competing is expensive. So it adds up, especially when it comes, you don't realize it when it comes, out of your parents' pockets, but when it's on you and you got to pay $120 to compete. And then you're like, okay, well, if I pay for it, well, I better win. So we did whatever championships we could find. Another friend of mine, close friend of mine, like a brother to me, Master Michael Chansey, is a 4th degree black belt. Him and I basically have been partners for many years throughout the tournament circuit. And we just went wherever we could, wherever the wind blew. Master Kim was like, hey, we're going to go here. Then we went there. And we were mostly based out of Jersey while he was in Manhattan. So, we had the privilege of having him commute to Jersey a bunch of times and teach special classes for us. Just teaching us what he taught in the city. It wasn't always easy to get into the city to train with him. So again, just things that, people at that rank and that height don't do. That he does. So just to have that is just a privilege. But yeah, we just did kind of like whatever we could hop into. And worked really hard, we trained for I think the training for these tournaments and the vision that I had for them, because there's sort of 2 different pedagogical ways you can go about getting your students prepared for a tournament. you can make the event sort of supernatural, like bigger than life. Like, hey, we're getting ready for this huge thing, and it's going to be massive and big, and for some people that doesn't work because it makes them more timid. And I find that in my experience, if you make it sort of another day, which I do, if you make it just another day, and it's going to go do what we normally do just in front of these people here, but you know, the same thing you do here. And it's sort of, you minimize and you take away, you subtract that that asterisk next to that day, then they perform better, which is what happened yesterday. I didn't expect, I don't know why I didn't expect it. You know, I'm very humble to, you know, any kind of result. You know, I just want these kids and these adults to, you know, get out there and do their thing. And that's what they did. But, you know, I find that if you're taking away and making things seem a little bit more normal, it takes a lot of edge off of the competitor. But in my case, I did the opposite when I was training. And I made, you make things up, and you make opponents in your mind up, you know, as you go. You have to be a little psycho about it, and to perform, you know, at a high in a very important competition, so to speak, at a high level, you gotta like be talking to yourself, because not a lot of people know, and not a lot of people know what it's like to step in a ring and look at somebody else across from you, who's like really capable of handing it to you. You know, able to kick you in the face, could you know, very likely end your career in competing, or, you know, just take away your desire to continue martial arts. Even I've seen that happen. You know, one bad shot to the knee, one low kick, one high kick the wrong way happens in boxing. You know, you get hit in the back of the head, and then, you know, the guy's in a wheelchair. So people don't understand how dangerous this thing really gets, especially with full contact, which the sparring was what I live for, and I still do. You know, but I would say, even in what I learned from over the many years, even in teaching myself, if you have a firm grasp of the patterns, not that you, and this is part of what I try to discover on my podcast, is, do we need to learn patterns in order to be good fighters? Because if you're a jiu-jitsu player, there aren't no patterns to learn. You just learn the basics. And any black belt, really, in any martial arts style, formal or not, is really just applying fundamentals at a high level. That's what black belt really is about. So do we need to learn the patterns? I don't know. So my guests sort of helped me uncover that. But I know for myself, having a firm grasp on the patterns, like obsessing over those details there, and coming from Grandmaster Kim, because that's his emphasis. Really, his emphasis is everything, but he spends a lot of time on patterns. We've never gone to a seminar at Grandmaster Kim without spending at least 2 hours on patterns. At least 2 hours. Like he's like, this is the minimum, because General Choi he's like, General Choi were here, he would kick my butt if we didn't do patterns. And that's like, again, going back to your experiences and what it's like, they all triangulate.
Very much.
It was just cool to be a part of that atmosphere with so many different people. I have, and I made so many friends, which I guess is, you know, sort of the nature of boys. You fight someone you think you don't like, and then you're friends for like 50 years after that. So,
very much.
I've got lots of friends like that. I got a friend, shout out to my friend Bruce Osorio, who works who's in the city. He's awesome. I talk to him on Instagram all the time. I've seen him in a long time, but you know, we have that energy there. You know, that connection's there. We love to fight. We enjoy just being able to be part of that part of someone else's life in terms of you know, how things were going at the school at the time. But I used to do like thousands of sit-ups, you know, in a session. Like I would do, you know, bang out 1,000 sit-ups, or, you know, go run 10 miles or whatever. You would overtrain. But you needed to overtrain to understand if you're going to be a teacher. Not that I thought I was, but you need to do those things in order to understand what's too much, what's too little, or what's enough, and then how to transpose that onto your students. Because how can I realistically expect them to do something I haven't done? That's hypocritical. So, you know, when I was teaching in Montclair, in New Jersey here. You know, I would habitually get to the school, and it's legend. I would habitually get to the school probably 12:30, 1 p.m. every day, somewhere between that window. And I would train for 2 hours before I started teaching. So that was like, it was a part-time job for me, but I gave it full-time attention. Because I never wanted to be, I got the opportunity to teach, you know, I'm a kid, you know, so for me to get that from someone is automatically like, okay, highest praise you can get. Someone trusts you to lead their students with their vision. I would just train my heart out, you know, whatever it was, weightlifting, running, sit up. I was jump rope crazy. So like those things you just had to do, because when the students came in, I never one day felt guilty or hypocritical. As I said, whatever I'm asking for you in class, I've already done it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You're just putting in you're just depositing your time today. I'm right here with you. You just didn't see me sweat, you know. But, but sometimes they would catch me. Sometimes I would consciously run my workouts closer to the time we started having to teach class. Sometimes even redlining it, finishing like 2 minutes before, because I wanted them to see me deposit that time and that effort. I think that is important, you know, for people to see, not just the parents, but for the students themselves to take a note. Okay, he's working on this, and making time for this. So I'm going to do whatever he says, and it worked most of the time when I was teaching. So I was happy. I did whatever I could and poured my life into it and my heart into it, and that's led me here.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I know you pick up on the qualities of the martial artist, and I'm sure I read somewhere that you were saying about using them in your everyday life, not just use the qualities that you achieve, the traits, the attitude, and look to be a positive influence on yourself in other aspects of your life.
Yes, it's so, and when you think about it, right, like when we really get down to like the nitty gritty of it, which is kind of what I do here, like we have so many, like being a black belt instructor has basically like no like specific job, right? Like, you know, like we do all of them. You know, it's not like we're just, you know, the instructor and then we turn our back when you do something else. You know, like, you know, I know for at least the people I'm around, I've had the opportunity to be around, they're very involved in their students' lives. You know, not to say there's obviously a degree of separation to some point, but you know, you want to like know that they're doing well. You want to get an idea if they're not doing well. You kind of want to be involved with the students I have. I always check on grades with their parents. Hey, how you doing in school? Like, you know, like what's the academic situation like? And not in terms of A's, B's, and C's or numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not worried about that. What I ask the kids is, are you, and this is every week, are you doing your personal best across the subjects? Are you spending time after you get out of Taekwondo reviewing here? Because, you know, you're going to pick back up. You're only with me an hour a day. You got 23 other hours to not be here. So because of that 23-to-1 ratio, like you got a lot more off the mat to take care of than you do when you're here. So not that they get, you know, any less attention, but you should be putting your best. If you're putting your best in the class, should be putting your best into the mat. You should be, you know, a leader when you're at your house. If you're an older brother or sister, I have, you know, 2 sons, you know, who are 11 and 6. A daughter that's 2.5, going on 25. So, you know, it's like, and they all do Taekwondo downstairs here with me every day. Like, it doesn't get any better than this, to have that ability to be close, because I'm concerned and involved with them. So I want to make sure that I push myself that way with not just the children's students, but with the adults too. You know, there's professional difficulties. A lot of people got laid off this year. Let's be real. A lot of people lost their jobs and all over the place, homeless. And just, if you didn't develop any empathy over the past year as a person, and even more so as a black belt, you really can't call yourself a black belt anymore. Because it's, you know, even if you're not teaching people, our job, I think, falls within all parameters, but it really, especially as a father, it allows me to be more empathetic. So like, there are things that happen that you can't control. There are things that, you know, you never thought would happen and happen to some of the best people. You know, so it's hard times fall on good people. You know, I say that a lot of times. So it's just like, I feel like I really got to grasp, like, sort of like the like if there were like an orb of like, you know, like all of the energy that Taekwondo embodied, I feel like I got my hands around it this past year.
Yeah.
And was just able to apply it because, you know, there were so many people that were in tough situations or, you know, couldn't pay this or whatever. And I was like, yo, no problem. Like, it's not an issue. Just keep coming to class, keep training.
Yeah.
Things will get better. We'll talk later about that. Like, let's just get your butt here and let's train. I'm here for you. You know, I'm working a day, you know, 8-hour day, and I'm still training you here. Like, I want to be here. So, you know, as long as that desire doesn't go away, you know, we can continue working. And I think that's a special aspect about what we do. It's not like the grocery store where you got to pay before you go, you know, like you know, here you can get like, you know, if you're working with the right people that understand you and you're transparent and that honesty, the integrity that we talk about in the tenets.
Yeah.
I always urge my students, if there's something going on, pull me to the side and let's talk. I got no problems. I probably understand more often than not. So just, you know, especially being like a sort of a brand new dad, like I'm doing stuff I thought I'd never do, you know, so it's all good. And it helps so much, you know, just in the spectrum of understanding and how personally I changed my teaching, not to accommodate people. I don't teach to accommodate anyone, but how accommodating I am in the mental, emotional aspect in that terms of that relationship there. You know, they walk into a space that's not filled with any energy. The energy's got to be right in here. And it's got to come from me to start. You know, it's like when, I'm sure you've heard this many times, you know, when parents bring you children, they're like, hey, can you install this in my child? Well, actually, I can. And I've said that. I can't install it, but I can help them because it comes from home. So if it doesn't come from home, where's it coming from?
Yeah.
You know, so it's got to start from, it's got to be in, if you do something at home, I'll build the pyramids of Giza on top for you. Yeah. No problem. But you gotta, you know, that's why I try to get the parents involved to be on board.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great.
It's important, man. It really is.
Yeah. So the students that come in and enroll with the uniform, they become part of your family.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Treat them that way. You know how far-reaching the benefits of the martial arts is.
Yes.
How it can get you through tough times, build that resilience, and
that network of people. Just, you know, like what we have now. You know, talking to you from across the sea. Yeah. You know, like that's just in itself. I'm honored to be here. It's just like, you don't think of yourself. I don't walk around thinking of myself as anything but what I am. You know, so it's like to have the opportunity to be here today and talk to you from, you know, across the Atlantic, man, that's a huge thing. So, you know, building those relationships in martial arts, and the depth of those relationships goes so, like, I mean, I literally have people that it kind of puts that saying into like sort of like red water, right? Where it's like you have some like blood's thicker than water. Like I got friends that are more family to me than family, you know.
That's right.
You know, people who practice with me, and it's all psychological when you look at it, because one of the first things they do in the Army, which is very similar, right? Martial being military, is they strip you down, they all make you look the same. Yeah. So nobody's different. You got the same haircut, you got the same haircut, you got the same clothes, you got the same clothes, you got the same boots, we're all doing the same stuff. Yeah. So we do very much of that, and apply it here in Taekwondo, especially, you know, depending on where you go. But, you know, everyone's in uniform, everyone has a belt to wear in a formal style. We're all kicking and punching and blocking and learning patterns together, or having trouble trying to remember patterns, like all this stuff, and you know, taking the hits and the shots, and you bond over that stuff. When you have a unified goal and a direction. So I've got so many friends like that. You know, I don't have hundreds of people I would call friends, but the quality of the people that I have around me is, I couldn't trade that for anything else. Yeah, no, very much. And just think about where you were yesterday. You mentioned the tournament at the time, and I recently I got to know Grandmaster Brad Shipp. Yes. Fortunate to interview him. A very difficult time, but we did record some very good stuff about Grandmaster Kim, Grandmaster Kim. Yes, very much. Yeah, that was very deeply moving and everything. And but in doing so, I obviously got to meet him and understand where, you know, his martial arts and the people around it, and obviously that also crossed over to Grandmaster SJ Kim. Yes.
because he was there as well. And yeah, so it looks like a fantastic.
It was. It was an
there.
It was an awesome event. Awesome event.
Yeah. So yeah, really, really good to hear that and see that. And
Master Ship actually said that was the largest tournament he's ever run.
Wow.
It was that we had that many people. I mean, I felt it because I got there at 8 o'clock and we didn't leave till 6. So it was a long day, for sure.
Yeah.
But, it was a day where I wasn't thinking about, because most days just drag, they're not very, not very special at all. You're kind of going through routines or whatever, and then you get one special day every now and then. And that was kind of one of those special days where you don't think about time. You're there and it helps we didn't have any windows, right? But in this hotel conference room and we're just going, like we start and we just went and carried it out and made sure everyone had a great experience. And something I really, really liked that Grandmaster Ship did, I don't know if he's done this in prior tournaments or if it was just for this one. We're starting with this one, but not everybody got a medal. And I know there are people that have different opinions, and everyone should get a participation trophy. The 6 and 7, I think the 6 and 7 year olds got got whatever, so they all placed. But after that age group, if you didn't place, you didn't place.
Yeah.
And I know in my division, it was so big. I was like, well, it's kind of like Dragon Ball Z tournament style. Like we're gonna have this guy fight this guy, fight this guy. And we just kind of ran it all the way down to the wire. And I like that because it's something about that I think that makes it realistic, obviously, because life is not going to award you, any trophies for showing up anywhere. And that's just like 80% of the job, right? The rest of that, you got to put in the work and the blood, sweat, and tears. And these kids really did that yesterday, and the adults as well. I had one of my adults fighting for his first time, and we weren't even planning on him fighting, but they didn't have anyone else for him in his division. So I said, hey, you're fighting, put on this stuff. It's going to be, and he's got prior experience, so he was totally down and gung-ho about it. But just like, get some experience under your belt. Who cares? Don't worry about first place, second place. That doesn't mean anything. Get some rounds under your belt, because ultimately the real application of what you learn here has to work on the street. That's what we're looking for. And in your life, he knows that. But it was a well-run tournament. It's one of my favorite tournaments to go to. And bring students to, like, they always come back having a good time. I know my 2 boys competed yesterday, and they were taken care of, and they were made to work hard. That's what I like. That's key. That's all I'll say on the participation stuff. No,
very much. I mean, that's the lesson from martial arts, from the competition. Isn't it? It's you if it's your first time, you learn about the experience, you come away, and then you've got things to work on, haven't you? To perfect, to reform, and the kids find their way, don't they? They find their way with it.
Yes, they do. They have to.
It's what we all love and enjoy, and we put on tournaments, similar thing. Yes, like you say, first thing in the morning, they do go a long time, but it's always time well invested.
Do you find? I totally agree with you. Do you find that the tournaments that, because I spoke with I had the major privilege of speaking to Grandmaster Herb Perez, who's an Olympic gold medalist from '92, Barcelona. A wonderful conversation with him. Still grateful. I don't even know how I got his time, but the outreach of martial arts, right? Super grateful to have his time. And I spoke to a colleague of his and a teammate, Grandmaster Mark Williams, as well. And they both spoke to me regarding the style of tournaments, which changed a whole lot. I think we noticed that I personally didn't even watch Taekwondo at the Olympics this year at all.
Right.
I saw some highlights and I was like, I can't even call them highlights, but I look at I come out of that era of teaching and competing, where it was, it's kind of power focused, technique based. Not about sort of the showy off, turning kick, not going for the points. I understand it's got to have a little flashiness, and Taekwondo does have its, advanced techniques and stuff. But the more beautiful it looks, the more dangerous it is. And I feel like coming up from their time is like, I wish we could replicate that in today's in today's time. I think we got close yesterday with Grandmaster Ship's tournament, the way he ran that. No, it's just that's just the best way to do it. I find, like I hate to be a stickler and stick with the time and probably sound like a dinosaur to people who are, a little bit younger than me, but it's like, that's how I feel.
I understand what you're saying, because
the blood and guts era. I love that era.
Yeah. The Taekwondo that's representing the Olympics is not necessarily a reflection of what I do.
Exactly.
Well, I'm ITF, and it sounds like we're very similar as well. And and so it does bring the conversation to us from the outside. People say, "Oh, I saw the Taekwondo. I want to start," and I don't really kind of get involved in that. I say, "Yeah, of course, come in and join," and so forth. But then you get some people asking a little bit more about it and saying, "Is it this and that?" And I did pick up on Perez's discussion online, because he's from the WTF back in the day, where people got knocked out. That's how real it was. And now it's quite different. There's all the scoring pads and everything. So I can see how difficult it is for him to watch that.
Oh, it's got to be nerve-wracking, right? I mean, I've overheard him say, just kind of, and I love how he gets straight to the point. Like, Taekwondo is to render you unconscious, period. All the other stuff that you get from it is a benefit, but if we're looking at Taekwondo for what it is, as a martial art, you're not learning it first to, be a better person, or like that. You're learning that those are things that come with it. They're sort of the results, the end results in some cases, of hard training and being held accountable for your training and what you do on the mat. So those things are, if you have someone that's putting you in a position to be honest with yourself, that's where you get courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control. We're supposed to have those things at all times. Not saying we're infallible as black belts, there's also that argument I've heard from people where, isn't the black belt supposed to have more control than that? Well, we're human. I mean, so there are certain points in time where you do get angry, not upset, but angry. And like, how do you manage that? And, do you give yourself like, markers like, okay, well, these things sort of start to take me off. Maybe I should take a walk instead of say what I need to say right now, because maybe it doesn't need to be said, and then you kind of, it's a way to self-manage. But the way Grandmaster Perez put it, which I like, is like, it's just to knock you out. Like, that's what we're doing this for. You're trying to hit me, going to Master Williams, who I love talking to him too. He was, they're both just straight shooters. And like, the job was, to not get hit and hit in that order. And the third rule, which I've added to that list, is to repeat. I always ask my students, what's the first rule of fighting? And they say, don't get hit. And I say, okay, great. What's the second rule of fighting? It's like, they're kind of waiting around and say, okay, hit. Someone says hit, all right, great. I said, so what's the third rule? And they're like, I didn't know there were 3 rules. I said, well, you have to repeat that process, don't you? Yeah. So it's not like it's any different. I didn't add new information, but if you only do that in one exchange, you're going to be in a lot of trouble after a 2-minute exhibition or a fight with somebody. Then, God forbid it's on the street. Like, it's even more important there, because you don't know what's involved. There are other variables you can't control there. And here, I know where people's keys are and X, Y, Z. I know they're not carrying stuff on them, but if it's on the street, thankfully I haven't had to do a whole lot of stuff outside of the school. It's you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
No, that's right. And it can be put down to simple terms, can't it? Like you just said, don't be hit.
Very, very simple. Very simple.
Yeah, because you can obviously, you can get involved in sparring technicalities and this and the footwork and so forth, and
sure,
people can lose sight of what they're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Just bring it down to basics, and then away you go.
Question. I got another question for you too. I know you're interviewing me. I wanted to ask some questions back and just kind of. What do you think about the translation of Taekwondo from off the mat to in the street? What do you think about the way we're taught? Because that's like ITF very similar. Like, we move a very, very closer to the. I move closer to how the ITF.
Yeah. I can see that. I've seen that.
So that kind of generating some of the sine wave things. But what do you think about that? I always get this question, you know, from many people outside and some people who have been doing it, but for not as long. And they're like, you know, what, you know, can you use this, you know, because no one's going to be counting Hanadu set. I'm like, yeah, but it's not that, you know, and I'm kind of like a straight shooter. I kind of boil things down as simple as I can. And I'm like, listen, there honestly are some people that can only fight when there are rules.
Right.
They can only fight in the confines of that. They're great fighters. They can adapt to any rule set. But if I took them to, let's say, a bar, you know, which I don't spend much time in. But if I go to a bar and something pops off over there, that person all of a sudden is looking for what the rules are going to be when there aren't any at that moment. You know, it's like, let me take this, and then that environmental awareness doesn't kick in. And I feel like on my end, I got best of both worlds, because I know kind of I'm practical and pragmatic with where I am. Like, I know I could use this radiator. I'd rather use the radiator to stop your fist than to like sit there and block, you know what I mean? So, and then I can sort of work on you from there. But I've honestly taken some people to places where I'm like, you guys are thinking about Taekwondo as point fighting, but not as real self-defense. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And it comes up a lot, doesn't it? In adult conversations about martial arts, reasons people starting, or even your own students. And we kind of, I think some people don't like to face that side of it, even in the training. They just want to stay in the dobok and train, and they enjoy that. But we kind of talk about it, and we talk about certain techniques having more effectiveness for most people rather than the head kicks. You know, some people, realistically, that's never going to be a good option for them. The flexibility issues, or, you know, it's going to be dangerous for them to start doing that. You know, you're going to get grabbed, fall over, and so forth. But there'll be things with the elbows, with the way you use your hands and everything. That, but I kind of get a group of people that are together, and we talk about, let's talk about real life situation, you know, and it gets a bit brutal and a bit, you know, we take them through that. But it's an invitation. I don't say to everyone, you've all got to do this, because some people, it's just not their thing, you know. And then you've got that issue, haven't you, of obviously you can be a top fighter in a rules-based thing, but someone really going mad at you in the street, or you don't know how you're going to react, you know. That's the adrenaline thing, isn't it, you know? For sure. And I think it's almost, if I may interrupt you there, of course, I feel like there is a lot of it's in because I always talk about the trained response and the untrained response to anything. So like, if I'm going to throw a kick at someone that's untrained, there's typically a subset of ways that they can move. Most times they'll step back like it's a fast train coming. So they'll just move back because that's just the safest way they know how to get it. And it's easy. They don't have to learn anything. You know, most people will do that. But a trained fighter might actually move in toward you. You know, so there's that sort of subset of responses, and, you know, the many ways counterattacking looks. But I find that the bravery that's on the mat, sometimes that people absorb the confidence from the atmosphere here, but don't take it with them out the door. So they can almost, if I'm making sense, they can almost fight here better than they could fight anywhere else. Of course. So, and it's, you know, it's interesting to see, because I'm talking elite level. Like, you know, they're just not, they're scoring. They got the reverse turning kick, counterattack to the rear leg turning kick coming. They got the axe kick inward out. Like, they can do all that, pump the side kick 50 times. But then when it comes to like, okay, this person's got a knife, or this person's got a sword, or they're getting ready to tackle you, like, you can put them in a guillotine choke and, you know, squeeze your chest. Shout out to my jiu-jitsu instructor, Christian Montez, from the city, running athletics. But, you know, like, you could do things like that, and going, just piggybacking off of what I just said, even like just being able to blend, go outside, a little bit outside of Taekwondo, just not saying go completely over the pond, but just taking jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a year, made me so much more confident in my skills. And I'm already a confident person. I don't lack that. But I guess the better word is competent. So I feel like I have the ability to do many things from many different angles, including the floor now. So it's like my Taekwondo got better,
by improving an area that's not related at all. Isn't that interesting how that works?
Yeah, no, it's very much, it's bridging that gap, isn't it, from your
very much so.
Into the street. Yeah. We do a kind of similar thing, as I said, not jiu-jitsu, but I value that and I do understand that.
Yes.
And many people are looking to do similar things now with that in mind. But we do take our traditional moves and we talk about how we use them immediately, quickly, rapidly, and so forth, and how to move, like you say, with weapons. It's never back. Only if you can run away. But at some point, you're going to have to go forwards.
Correct. That's a great way to put it. At some point, you're going to have to go forward. I love that. That's great. I got to use that. I have to steal that from you. If you hear me say that, I'm giving you love. Copyright infringement issues. All right.
But so you have to recognize that it's different out there. And here's something I was going to say, actually. Fortunately, I've not had many altercations myself nowadays. Just must be the paths I walk, I'm in early, I'm teaching, there's no... You can sort of... I did have something happen in the big city. I went up to London with my wife when we were just dating, and we went into some place and there was a big hoo-ha, and all these guys stood up, and everyone looked at me, he's the guy that's going to sort them out,
Right.
But he never got to that because I just kept my cool, and I just found that was my Taekwon-Do just kicked in.
Yes.
You held your nerve, you said the things that should be said. Yes. And everyone and these guys settled down, and then later on they came out and shook my hand, and we never had an altercation at all.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? You can make you can make most fights unavoidable.
Yeah.
You can make them that way if you just, you may not feel like the biggest person or the alpha male, right? Which, not, if you, like, again, if you push me and I push you back, like that process in your brain doesn't go past past the animal part of your brain.
Yeah.
It's just an instinctual thing to do.
Yeah.
So there's not much thought when it's there, but I find like the training, when you compound it, and you have to have someone that's talking about it too. Like they have to be capable, but they also have to be knowledgeable. And I feel like if they disseminate the information to you as you're going, like, every class, not every class, but, they're constantly talking to you about application, then you'll understand, like, all right, well, this is what's at stake. And, this, your mortality, especially if you have, a wife or a wife to be, like you said, I think you had at the time, or a daughter in my case, or a family, like, you think completely different in that situation. You're not gonna, your job is to get everybody home.
Yeah.
And that's it. Even if you don't go home, they get to go home.
Yeah.
And that's how it should kind of always be. It shouldn't be, like trying to flex, your muscles on.
Yeah.
People still do that. I mean, as a kid, even in my 20s, I had issues with, people in bars or whatever. I did get into altercations sometimes here and there. But nothing I wasn't able to solve quickly. And sometimes it mean I had to like hold the person over restraint. I never knocked people out. Like, I wasn't, that kind of guy. I say that for the tournaments.
Yeah.
But I was a dog at tournaments, but I didn't feel like I needed to do that in a public setting, because you got first you have to fight for your life there. But then when that fight's over, now you got to fight for your freedom, because now you got to get someone's going to get involved somewhere that's on a legal level. Talk to someone or battle someone. How's that going to look on you? Instructor gets into altercate. We have to stay out. Now, how I tell my students this, and I've had an adult student of mine ask me this, and it was a great question. He said, "How do I know when it's time to fight?" And I boiled it down to this right here. I said, if what you're fighting for or about to fight for can be replaced, don't fight.
Right.
If what you're fighting for can't be replaced, your life, someone else's life that's really important, go for it and devoid your heart of all emotion for that time being.
Yeah.
Until you're safe, you can go put ice on him when you're done. And, he's not throwing, swinging haymakers at you anymore. But, that's how I visualize, and that's how I participate in the real world with those.
That's a great way of putting it, isn't it? Like you say.
Thank you.
If if what you're fighting for can be replaced, then
if it's my wallet and you got a gun, I don't care about how fast my kicks are. Take the wallet, I'll go home. I got no problem.
Pretty much, yeah. Wow. So, Master, we talked many things. I really enjoyed our conversation. It's great stuff. And like you say, we didn't really know each other until we started talking, and there's so many things in common. We're martial artists, we share a lot of things. We've had similar experiences.
Yes.
And we're looking to grow ourselves and further ourselves in our training and everything. So you've mentioned some of the things already. Other things that you can share, what you've learned so far, you think of the tenets of Taekwondo.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk, I guess, like my next step sort of, I guess from here is, it's interesting. I will say this, it's interesting being an instructor in a virtual age. The technology that's been able to bring you across to so many people and me across to so many people, including yourself. I learned the skill of being able to teach online. Yeah. I never had that before. If you had told me you need to learn this now, and I'm very manual, I still read books with my fingers. Like I don't do I can't scroll through books something about that. I have a total discipline on that. Hence the library I have upstairs. But just being able to develop that skill this past year and to be able to effectively reach people was really cool. Like I had to learn, to figure out someone else's space when you're not there is hard. Yeah. Like how much space do you have? Take one step forward. And to understand, like we were taught really well, like how to, what to emphasize, what to de-emphasize while they're in the pandemic, what not to say. Sometimes, they really weren't giving me great kicks or weren't really giving me great punches, but I'd be like, you know what, that's great, keep going. And I was more saying that's great in terms of them continuing to participate instead of, quit or say like, all right, I'm tired for the day. I have plenty of people say they're tired. I say, I am too. So let's keep going. So it's nice to add that to the repertoire. To be able to not just work the app, but to be able to use it in an effective way to reach people that physically can't make it to where you are, but want to train with you. Yeah, that's a huge thing. I mean, for someone to say, I'll use my living room or I'll go downstairs in my basement, to talk to you and train with you is great. And I ended a lot of those conversations with many of my students, adult students, mostly the ones that are training online. I ended a lot of those training sessions with conversation. Check on them, how you doing? How's your family? How's the pandemic? Have you gotten COVID yet? And really genuinely being concerned about them. And it made a big difference in their attitude. I would get the text messages the next day. I check on my students every week. So I always do a check-in. I talk to their parents, say, how's everything? Just want to reach out. You don't have to type a paragraph back, but maybe they have financial trouble one week and you never know, and they paid you anyway. I'll send that back to you. Things like that. I think it goes a long way because it's part of our job. Yeah. But I think it's an extra little thing that we can tack on to really bridge the gap between people. Obviously, when you get schools of 500, 600 people, it's so much harder to keep that intimate because, you have to develop a system to reach everybody. So you have regulated message. But, one of my instructors used to make phone calls to all of the students on the cards. Didn't matter how many students. I used to watch him call 300 people. Wow. I'm like, on a Saturday after he finished teaching for 4 hours. Yeah. I'm like massive, my head was blown. Now that I'm in that role where all those things he was preparing me for, I'm doing now. Thank God I watched this guy do that because I'm not doing the same exact thing he's doing. I'm using the technology to people, sending the text message or sending an email or going on Instagram and posting something and tagging parents. So I don't have to say this message to every single person, so it's nice to be able to make use of the tech, it's as much as it is bad for us if we're stuck on it for too long. Yeah, it was responsible for keeping so many of us, including actual family members, together over the
Yeah,
past
yeah. We all did it, didn't we? Yeah.
Amazing. Like, thanks to Steve Jobs for the,
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, so, you're talking about the manual side of things that your instructor did, but the intention's the same from yourself. You're just able to use technology and connect with everyone. And that's it, isn't it? That's it. It's cool. I mean, yeah, I'm picking up on your integrity, the trueness that you have with what you do, what you've learned, how you are as a martial artist. You believe to teach martial arts, you have to do it, you have to live it, and then it's that authenticity, I guess, that you saw in those early days with your instructors and Grandmaster. That's transcended through, and I think that's similar for me. Like you said, there's certain individuals I've met from afar at times, but nevertheless they connected with me, and they fill in the blanks, don't they? They fill in the blanks where that was my experience of.
I'm just happy that I could, I'm grateful every day, just to be able to, to do this. I'm not into the spiritual God thing, but like, for me to be here and the difficulty that I had getting here is a story in itself.
Yeah.
I don't narrate it, I do in chunks. I do tell stories on Instagram where, and I'm not doing it for likes or for shares I really want people to know and understand and recognize that, I'm serious about the job. That's what I want people to know. That's the point of me, doing these kinds of things, is that, not necessarily to inflate the hardship, but to demonstrate that there is a human element to what we do that really, I think, will be around for a long time, regardless of, how much, and we understand the rate at which technology multiplies itself. There's an equation or formula for it. I forgot it from computer science, but, it goes pretty fast, and whatever we have now, the military has 10 times that. So, like, we're just getting our hands on little things here, but I do see people being more locked into their phones. I've caught myself like, hey, I've been looking at my phone for too long. I need to go do this. And I remind myself to be present with the people that matter most. And that's my family. When my daughter's tugging on my leg and she wants to go outside, like, I don't say no, like, let's just do it. Regardless of how tired I am. And I think the Taekwondo training is it's an identity that I've sort of bonded myself with, if that makes sense. Separate, almost like, I don't know if you're familiar with like Spider-Man or like, if you put if you could separate like the symbiote aspect, that black suit, from the actual Spider-Man, it's like two different things. And then when you look back and then you merge it, you get something completely different. I feel like I've merged my own identity of who I am. Maybe it's not, and the question is really right. And I have more questions than answers on my journey and the experience, which is, would I be the same person without martial arts? And the second, I guess, question would be, how different would I be without it? So, and would I be here? I guarantee you, my parents never thought I would be talking to someone from London about Taekwondo.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here, and it's just cool. I feel like I'm on TV right now, but me and you are just vibing on. On our experiences here. We just, relaying stories, and Grandmaster Kim is a big unifying part of that, because his involvement in my life, personally and professionally, with being an instructor now, and just being concerned about for someone to be concerned about your training is so cool. Like, are you how much do you weigh now? Are you running every week? Are you doing this? Like, that's what I wish, we almost wish we could have that forever, in a sense we do, in certain aspects and certain chunks, and our job is to stay responsible and be accountable. One of my big is accountability. So, in this Dojang, I just wrote a welcome. I put together a welcome packet for my students and forward, just to have like a little bit better of a presentation. And I wrote sort of my own school rules out, which I've never done before. And always kind of copied and pasted and yada yada. But this time I sat down with myself, and over the course of like 3 or 4 days, I wrote my own rules out.
Yeah.
With that, I attached a letter, which was kind of like a preface to everything, sort of like a cover letter. And I talked about, you know, the energy in this space, which I've alluded to prior in this podcast, where I was like, you know, there's no bigotry or prejudice allowed here. We're all one person. My big thing, my quote for the school is, all differences die at the door. So, you know, whether you're politically indifferent, whether you're racially indifferent, you've never seen a black person, I mean, I'm a, you know, black guy doing a career martial art from the other side of the world, you know, so it's like, you know, it's not a field where I'm prevalent. You don't see me a lot. But, you know, the people that I get a whole mix. I've easily taught over, I would have to say 5,000 to 6,000 students in my time. And it's like, I've never had to talk about, you know, those things, because I made sure that from the jump, we understood that was the rule. Yeah. If you talk about this, you go outside the door. Whatever you do outside my garage door is on you. Whatever you do when you're here and you come past that line, now you're in my territory. So I wanted to make sure that not just the students, but the parents understood that as well, because sometimes they can get out of line too. So I've kind of set that up as a means for sort of like a family to read, you know, like look and read with each other without me having to make the announcement. That's tacky for me to say. So I just put it in you know, in sort of a libel form for them. But I think that was probably the most important process for me as of late, was to establish, you know, my own sort of culture here. Yeah. That a lot of workplaces talk about, but don't oftentimes do. Here we live that, and I'm really proud of all of my students, and I'm really grateful to have all the people that are continuing to come through the door. It's really surprising to get, you know, continuous sort of support. I have a big Instagram post I'll make tomorrow to congratulate all the competitors, including my 6-year-old son, who took a punch to the face pretty hard too, and continued and won the match. That was, I mean, that's like the parent moment. I was like, you know, I had to be so humble. I was like, you know, keep yourself regular. I'm really just so proud for you. You live through, you know, I have the itch to still compete. I still want to. I still have the vigor and the energy to do it. I don't have the time to train. I don't have as much time to train as I used to. You live. I was talking to a couple of parents, like, you live through, you know, the any win for your student is a win for you. Any loss for them also is a loss for you. They lose family members, or they lose their job, or they lose this. Those things matter, and they hit you too, and in some ways. And you have to somehow find a way to do it effectively. I think you have to be successful in our field. You have to be, you have to open your heart a little bit to everyone's sort of circumstance. You know, even if you generalize it, you know, there are certain things that are normal in life. You win stuff, you lose stuff, but some things are a little heavier to lose, and some things are not expected for them to win. So you join with them in that. And that was kind of, you know, our experience yesterday. And the point of my existence here is to just teach. I mean, this is it, you know, I would die doing it. I told my wife, I said, put that belt, if it's my time before you put that belt in my casket when I go. Because I said, I still want to be practicing, and wherever I'm going next, I'm going to need that, I know.
Yeah, that's right. No, 100%. I mean, you're right. You keep it real, don't you? For yourself, for them, and you're there for them. You share the wins, the losing, and I mean, it brings it to the forefront, doesn't it? It brings it to the table so you can deal with it.
Yes,
you know. So you can say all these things. If you get disappointed, do this. If you don't, and when they bring disappointment with you, then you can deal with it. You know what I mean? That's the power of the competition, isn't it? That
100%, and it's an introspective look in yourself, right? I mean, we could talk for hours on this.
You think about how you deal with it.
Yeah, it's you're competing against you. At the end of the day, it's what you can do that day, you know. And maybe there have been times I even got disappointed when I got first place, because I didn't get first place in the way I wanted to get first place. Like, okay, I got lucky that shot just happened to land before they called time. other than, it's like what Michael Jordan said. He had a great quote from the Last Dance documentary, and he said he was kind of recounting. He's very accountable. Like, I find that he's always honest about it. He's always been honest in all of his interviews about his performance, even though he's revered as the greatest. Even though you have Bill Russell, who has like 11 NBA titles, and Jordan has 6. We don't talk about that, or Kareem, right? But he says, he's the one part in the doc where he's talking about all his failures. I've missed this man. He's counted how many shots he's missed. He's counted how many games he's lost. He's counted, he's psychotic about the number and the intention, which is mind blowing to me, because you don't think that they think about these things. And he was just talking about like just how many times he's failed, in light of all the things that he's recognized for in terms of the winning department. He's probably failed more often than that.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at that relationship, like, what we call failures and what we call wins is also a reflection of where we are in our life too. This, just to have this school, even though it's not a huge space, this is like a kingdom to me. And for someone else, this is, who's got a brick and mortar sort of set up already, this may be nothing, but, at the time, the relativity of time for the two people, it makes things, completely different.
Yeah.
Very interesting. He just, but quote, I didn't say the quote. I said all that and didn't say the quote. He said, I never lost a game. I just ran out of time.
Right.
Wonderful way, perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like half full, half empty kind of thing. I love that quote.
Yeah.
Very martial artsy of him to do.
No. And Master, if we can leave it with that quote, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So he never lost a game. He just ran out of time.
Just ran out of time. That's it. That's his quote. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on, Master Hudson. I really appreciate being able to be here with you and speak with you. And you the time on your end as well. You're 5 hours ahead, so
yeah.
It's great to. I spoke to someone who was about 13 or 14 hours ahead, so that was really. I was up at like 1 a.m. trying to myself up for that, but it worked out. But again, I'm really appreciative for you reaching out, and I'm glad to be able to talk to everyone on this platform. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time, and it's always well worth it. I've learned things today. There's things that you said that have just gone, that reminded me of experiences I had, things that I can share tomorrow with my students that you've brought up today. So I really appreciate that, and had a great time and thoroughly enjoyed it, and look forward to putting this together for many people to listen to as well. And maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yes, sir. And hopefully I can get as a guest on mine in the near future. Yeah,
fantastic. 100%. And, on my 50th birthday, I went to New York. I'd never been flown across the pond before. I've done it several times since now. Obviously, life's a bit tricky now, but there will be a time when it becomes a lot easier.
For sure.
And
that way too.
And I'd love to come and visit yourself and
absolutely
Grandmaster Chef as well. And
yes, if anyone's looking to find my school, if anyone's that's listening to this is in around the Jersey area, New York area, mastercm.net, and you can look at me up on Instagram, instagram.com/Master Chris Malarkey, if anyone's around that wants to train here, and that's open to anybody that's listening, regardless of the style. So
fantastic. Thank you so much, sir.
You, sir. All right, take care.